You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christy Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how? Hello. All right, so today I'm joined by Dorman, a registered dietitian, nutrition therapist, speaker, and advocate with 20 years of experience working with children and adults with disordered eating, emotional eating, body image, self-esteem, and eating disorders. Her mission is to improve your mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Lauren graduated from Penn State University with a bachelor's in nutrition and obtained her master's in nutrition from Rutgers University. She has a private practice and consulting company called Don't Diet Dietitian. Love it. She believes that every person deserves access to a registered dietitian. Not just any registered dietitian, but one who is an expert in nutrition science to help navigate nutrition misinformation, teach sustainable health habits, and focus on a self-care behavioral approach to healing our relationship with food, body, and mind. Boom. Okay. So obviously we get into this. You know that I'm all about this stuff right now. Lauren shares the story of her why she does what she does, and also how and why she pivoted in her career from straight up nutrition dietitian to this focus on a self-care behavioral approach. Really good story there. We discussed the difference between a diet and dieting, why dieting doesn't work, and how to handle those really tricky conversations around our weight with our doctors. We also talk about intuitive eating, how to approach food and meal times with our kids, and of course, we do some coaching around my body image. All right, so before we get to Lauren, I want to remind you that if you like what you're hearing on this show, you can support me anytime on buymeacoffee.com. The link will be in the show notes. Yes, you can buy me a coffee because Lord knows I need it. All right, here's Lauren. Hey, Lauren. So nice to meet you. Thank you for being here with me today.
Hey.
I am excited. I'm going to give you a fair warning here that these food and body episodes usually turn into like a mini coaching session for me. So buckle up.
I would love to coach you through this.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, this issue, isn't it? All right, so let's get into it because I've got a ton of stuff I want to get to with you. Why don't you start by sharing a little bit about why you got into this work? What makes you do what you do?
Sure. So at a young age, at about 11, I always enjoyed reading those teen magazines, and I just kind of always enjoyed that nutrition section in there and all the recipes and the advice. And I never had an eating disorder or a bad relationship with food when I was young, but I think I was just interested in health and thinking, how can I make people feel good and healthy? Little did I back then that the nutrition is really a very small part of our health. But, when I was in school and what I learned was, more of that it's a big part of our health. So I went to Penn State University for nutrition, and then I got my master's and my RD license, and I started working in the hospital at Monmouth Medical Center in New Jersey. And I worked a lot with children with diabetes, and I really enjoyed that, all the aspects of the management of diabetes. And I worked with, a weight management diabetes center. So very different from what I do now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then um, COVID, well, I guess it was before COVID, I started having a little bit of an interest more in eating disorders and disordered eating and thinking that maybe I should focus more on this. And my sister called me on September 16th, 2018, and told me that my niece has neuroblastoma cancer.
Mm.
So from that point on, life obviously changed drastically for me. And what I was doing in my position in my as an RD didn't really align with me anymore. Like I didn't want to teach people portion sizes and get them on the scale. And I really wanted to do more of like a healing approach and more of uh, tuning into their emotions and feelings, because what I realized actually was that I wasn't ever asking my patients the right questions
Mm.
and years ago. Now, I do think that COVID had a big impact on an increased rate of disordered eating.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also like why I need to impact and inspire more people to just feel good in this one life that we have. That my niece didn't get to have this life. She passed away in 2020.
Mm.
So her, um, she lives within me every day, and I know that I do what I do because I just want to make others feel good and live their best life emotionally, physically, mentally. I know that
Yeah.
was really long, but
Yeah.
I have to let you know that it's important for me to impact really at a large level too, to presentations and workshops and conferences, because so many people are in need of this healing and are living with these thoughts, which we will talk about as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How old was your niece?
She was so young. She was diagnosed at 2 years, 8 months old, and
Oh
she
my
passed
gosh.
away right before, like, almost 5 years old.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
we always want to keep her memory alive, and um, it's not easy, but you just never know what life is going to bring you. And I really do live my life more, mindfully and live like in the now. There is a
Mm-hmm.
book actually called The Power of Now. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I have heard of it, but I have not read it yet.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But and I just try to really just live in the moment. I don't think enough people are doing that in this life.
Yeah. What was her name?
Lily.
Lily. It's
Yeah,
beautiful. And thank you for sharing that.
of course.
I think yeah, I mean, I think the that experience for you, and then you mentioned COVID. I think a lot of people have had this sort of moment of what am I doing in my life? Does this matter to me? And when you think about even just you saying like, do I really want to be putting people on portion controls and like putting them on a scale? I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And when you look at it like that, it's like, yeah, that doesn't matter. What does that matter?
Mhm.
What does it matter if the piece of chicken is the size of my hand or
Exactly.
not, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, and also just then I dove into reading the intuitive eating books and listening to podcasts and taking courses. And I'm like, what have I been doing all along has actually been, some of it has been harmful. And there's so many dietitians that know, and we have to accept that in our past we made these mistakes because it's really the only way that we knew and we were taught.
right.
But now, diving into the research and understanding more, which we're going to get to, there needs to be more of an open mind about how we approach food, health, body, the next generation of eaters. Your little
Hmm.
kids, right? Your 3 and 5 year
Yeah.
olds. You don't want them to feel,
No.
shame and guilt and anxiety over food. We want everybody to have this good relationship, and um, yeah. So I
Yeah. I think the
all that research and science and facts, on top of my experiences, it just everything kind of came together for me, and I ended up resigning from my position. And Don't Diet Dietitian has been 2 years now, helping many, probably over like 200 people to
Wow.
heal so far, and hopefully a lot more in the future.
Yeah. I think that aspect of, what we're taught, right? And I know a passion of yours is, getting into school systems and doctors' offices and starting to change this narrative. But I think I've heard from enough women who, and I say women because I've mainly only interviewed women, but I've heard from enough women that have gone to school for this sort of thing who
Mhm.
say, like, it was hard to learn the things that they were being taught just as a woman reading it. Like, I saw I think it was a TikTok, of course, usually something, and I know she was a dietitian, and she's like the video is her cutting a bagel, and she's like, "Me the point of view is me actively talking myself through what I was taught in school is that a bagel is equivalent to 6 slices of bread, and therefore I should not eat it." And it's like she's, like, going through her own head with it,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
it's
Yeah,
pretty wild.
you
Yeah.
know, like before, how I said I grew up and I had a good relationship with food, but then as you know, I definitely had some touches of disordered eating because everybody does, right?
Yeah,
I don't
we're all
think
anybody's
nobody's
bombarded with the
really
messages. Yeah.
a normal eater. Everybody has some touch of it because we're just so wired to have that the thoughts.
Mhm.
However, yeah, so an example would be like I would probably have less nuts. I would have a half of a banana, half a big, yeah, things like that. I was probably doing in the years after college and in my first few years as being a dietitian, not thinking anything was disordered or wrong about that, just
Right,
thinking that is health, and
right,
not tuning in to hunger, fullness, not understanding that because that is now being taught, but that wasn't taught. Like we weren't taught to trust our bodies. We
right.
thought like external, not internal.
Yes, yes. Okay, so let's start, let's get into this a bit, and, you know, Don't Diet Dietitian, super catchy, love it, but
Thank
it
you.
does mention diet, right? And so I want you to clarify for me what the difference is between a diet and dieting.
Sure. So a diet is the sum of food and drinks that a person habitually consumes.
Mhm,
So it's just like a normal way of eating. And we all should kind of be eating in this imperfect way on over weeks. That's what matters for the absorption of nutrition, not day to day. So that's a very important
that
uh,
is huge.
yeah, like so many people don't see the big picture of, oh, I guess in the last 3 weeks I did have a variety of nutrient dense and less nutrient dense. So I guess I'm
Mhm,
doing pretty well.
mhm,
So that is a diet, just the way that we are eating.
mhm,
Dieting is actually the eating habits that we're now having this strict, rigid feeling around the food. So we are trying to focus only on our body weight,
mm,
not on our actual health or feelings or emotions. So it's really the practice of attempting to kind of micromanage your body. And we really aren't calculators and all of this macros and
Sounds ridiculous
calories
when
and
you say it like that.
oh, and also we're not robots. I like to tell a lot of my clients and a lot of well friends only if they ask. Not I don't say it. Um, we are not. We are a human being with emotions
Mm,
that need a variety of food. We are not a robot that needs to follow a plan because that does not last forever. How many people are on a plan for the rest of their life? Nobody. But everybody has these kind of blinders on that I'm on a diet, I'm on a diet. But why are you on a diet? Like, who told you to go on a diet? So a lot of it is really asking, like, what's going on? What are the emotions and the thoughts? What are the triggers? What's going on in your life that you're feeling, which we're going to get to with the mental health component, that you need to find this safety in this diet that is actually
mhm,
causing your body stress.
mhm.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
That's
I
just focusing on that really strict change in drastic change to eating habits.
yeah. I interviewed Dr. Morgan Francis, and she had a line that sticks with me still. She said, "It's a lot easier for us to say I feel fat than it is to say I feel unwanted."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh boy, that tugged at the heartstrings a little too close
Well,
to home."
actually, something else that I had a conversation with a dietitian actually yesterday morning that specializes in eating disorders, and we talked, and I was telling her about my daycare talk that I did yesterday, and she said,
Mhm,
the unconditional love aspect is very important because it's okay if you're a parent right now listening and you've done these things in the past where you like focused and you thought you were doing the right thing by saying something and thinking, oh my gosh, their health is going to be at risk if they eat more of that food or their body weight is this weight. But the reality is that the risk of their disordered eating and a risk of eating disorder is much higher than a risk of them getting diabetes or being
mm,
at heart disease. The effect of yo-yo dieting
mhm,
is a very increased risk of heart disease.
mm,
So that whole restrict binge cycle that a lot of people are stuck in because their thoughts are all stuck as well. um, yeah, that people will be stuck there for a long time if they're not able to break free of some of those thought patterns. Yeah.
yeah. Can you talk a little bit about maybe the psychology behind why diets don't work and the
Mhm.
consequences of doing so over and over and over again?
Sure. So I actually have a handout and it says the 10 reasons why diets don't work. So
Love it.
I'm just gonna
I'll link that.
yeah, we can link that. So, statistically, the outcome of dieting is weight gain in the future. Either gaining back the same amount that you were because your body really does have this set weight range that it's comfortable at, or gaining back more than what you started at because now the diet was designed to actually fail you because your biology wants to be regularly fed with food throughout the day.
Mm,
But we're sold a complete lie that oh no, you failed.
yeah.
No, you didn't fail. Your body was just wanting its biology, wanting its needs from food and nutrition. And the diet industry now has repeat customers, right?
Mm,
People that feel this insecurity and the shame. Diets decrease your metabolism and they increase your fat storage. They lead to food cravings and food obsession. People actually think that they're addicted to food. I've had conversations with people that, tell me that, oh, their nutritionist told them that they're addicted to food. How do you think that's going to make the mental aspect component, right? How do you think that's going to make that person label themselves and feel they're going to continue to be in the cycle if they say, oh, well, I'm addicted to food, so there's
right.
no
Like,
helping
that's it.
me.
It's over for me. Yeah. Yeah.
They cause, this is a very important point. They cause irritability, anxiety, and depression, which all affects your mental health.
Yeah.
They increase stress response in the body. So you're making more stress, you're making more cortisol, and it can lead to this feeling of a failure or lack of willpower. And that causes body distrust.
Mm,
They are not, any diet is not built on the goal of empowerment. It's built on a goal of basically distrust and shame. And then going back to the set weight range, 70% of our genetics is really determines our body size. So if we all had the same size feet, the same size hands, the same size nose, the same size, well, we don't, correct?
right.
But is the diet industry telling us like, oh, we all, it can be easy. You just have to work harder and eat less and move more.
Right. We are the problem.
It's not,
Right.
every, you can eat the same, move the same, same stress in your life, same environment, and you can still be in all different body sizes.
Mm,
Twin studies showed that the twin who dieted was at the higher weight as well.
Mm.
Parents who try to restrict, they're making certain foods on a really high pedestal. They're making them very glittery, very powerful to their children, and they're not realizing the psychology of it. But that's the reality, and that's the science, that the child will really become more food obsessed the more that you restrict. And there's ways around that with certain language that I work with families on. That I'll give you one example. A parent who's having some anxiety around a junk food, right? We don't like to label it junk food because it actually makes the child want the food more. We want to be more neutral about it. But if they're saying, oh, they're getting all anxious and upset, oh, that's enough. It's enough junk. You've had enough. The child doesn't know, like, well, when am I going to get that delicious, yummy food again? And
Mm-hmm.
should I not like that delicious, yummy food? Is something wrong with me? If the language you use is, we're not having that right now, we're going to have some tomorrow, or we're going to have some the next day, what does the child then think? The child thinks, oh, so the food's not a big deal. My parent is telling me I'm going to have it another day. They still might not be happy, but you're not making the food the problem or their body the problem.
Okay. That's, I'm so glad you said that because, I have a 5-year-old and she is on this ice cream kick right now. And we typically have not kept it in the house, not for any other reason than we just don't eat it. Like
Yeah.
it's not something I buy. But she came to the grocery store with me a couple weeks back and we were in the aisle and she was like, oh, I want ice cream. I'm like, okay. We bought the pint or whatever it was. And there are days where like she'll have a bowl of ice cream like 3 or 4 times a day. And that is because I have all of this in my head and I'm going, don't work out. Like she will learn that if she doesn't feel good after this, then maybe she doesn't want to have it as much. And the difference that I'm hearing now is that I can say we will have more tomorrow. Like I was so concerned with putting it off or like or saying like we're not going to have any more today, we'll have more tomorrow, was doing the whole shame thing. And I'm hearing the difference now and I'm so grateful for it because I was sitting there going like she's literally just had ice cream today, like this, she's not going to sleep well, she's not going to go to the bathroom well, like this isn't good. And I want her to have other foods, but I was like, how do I do that without shaming her?
And you're not shaming her because you're not like, you're coming at it in a very compassionate, kind, calming voice, not making the ice cream about, just saying, this is what I'm providing. Like, you're not going to say this is what I'm providing you. If the parent chooses what you provide.
Yes.
And you
like
can
I still have
say, like the plate, like let's say, oh, we're not having ice cream right now. We're going to have ice cream tomorrow. Like if you feel that as the parent, that's what you want to do, I'm going to make you a fun snack plate. And on the snack plate, there's going to be some grapes and some cheese and some avocado and some chips or whatever you want to make on the snack plate. And I'm sure she's going to choose something on there. There's 3 or 4 choices that she likes, and she might not eat some things on there, but you're exposing her to all that.
Yeah. And she's like she's so funny because as with other foods, she's not, I'm like, it's so hard to talk about because I know even as I say this, I'm not going to want to say it, but like, she's not the pizza and chicken nugget and taquito kid. And like, she will never eat mac and cheese. Like she's not that kid. And I say, as soon as I say it, I don't want to say it because I know too much now, but it's like, if it's not ice cream, it's an entire carton of raspberries and hummus. You know what I mean? Like she's like
variety.
Yeah, like she was like on both extreme ends.
So also like another important point is like you can let her have ice cream 3 times a day because you know that it's about the choices over time. Like
yes, that's another great point you made. Yes,
it's really not. It's your decision as the parent what you feel. I mean, if you feel like she's been having 3 times a day for 5 days in a row, or maybe she's saying her stomach hurts or something, I don't know if she's ever complained about her stomach hurting or anything like that, or not feeling so good, or if you notice any behaviors in her.
Yeah.
But really, I come in and I want to give you this sense of like peace around
Yes.
the table and around your yeah. Once you put out what you put out, your job is done. Like walk away and say, do a little happy dance and say, whatever my child chooses off of that plate, that's their body and that's their choice. And I'm
Yeah.
not going to stress over it.
Okay.
Now,
Yeah, because
if you
yeah,
would
go
have
ahead.
talked to me like 10 years ago, I also would have been a little bit more anxious around certain foods, but I changed in the last 5 years, and it's so much better to live this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because then my son, he's the complete opposite. He wants nothing to do with a vegetable or a fruit, and he is the pizza and chicken nugget and mac and cheese kid, but he's also the kid that will see a cupcake, take one bite, and move on.
Right.
Like, he doesn't care. He has no need or desire to finish anything he doesn't want to eat. And so I see it in my
He's
house. It's like,
intuitive.
and I can see how my, like, my daughter is older and I was a first time mom and I was different,
Mhm,
and she reflects that. And then my son, he was second born and he was born during a pandemic when
mhm,
it
mhm.
was like
Yep,
chaos. And I was like, just eat. I don't care what you eat. And like, you
yep.
can see the difference
Yeah,
in
yeah.
them.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
And that less pressure. Actually, an important point too is pressure is actually saying, "Oh, that's awesome! You had a bite. You did so great." Like that's also pressure.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second. So I have to have a bite and I have to try and
Yeah.
no,
It's like, we just need
there's
to leave it
choice.
alone. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I want to we're gonna get to all the things you mentioned about the mental health and the impact of dieting on mental health. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about what we do when we are faced with a medical professional, someone we trust, saying, "Hey, the answer to your XYZ health problem is to lose weight."
Mhm. Good
What,
question.
what do we do about that?
Well,
if
first
it's
of
if it's
all,
not dieting, like, what is it? Like, what do we
right,
do?
right. And first of all, no disrespect to any physician, anyone in the medical field, right? Everybody is doing an amazing job at what they do. And the reality is that they're taught a weight centric, fat phobic system and a
Right.
BMI system, which we'll talk about. Um, the most important thing is go to your doctor's appointments because people might feel uncomfortable and feel ashamed and they don't even they take it takes 3 4 5 years or more, then they don't even go to their doctor's appointment. That is not health, right?
Right.
Once you're at the doctor appointment, if you don't feel comfortable to go on the scale and it brings you a lot of anxiety, it determines your mood, it promotes depression, whatever it is, if you looking at that number affects you mentally, you can say it's not healthy for me mentally to get on that scale.
Mm.
And they have to respect that. There's actually an article and it was on CNN, like they were showing these cards that said, please do not weigh me.
Mm.
So that again, like years ago, nobody was saying don't weigh me, right? But we
Right.
have that right. And through COVID, now that a lot of people did gain weight, not that there's anything wrong with gaining weight, we all survived a pandemic. We all used food to cope with most of us used it to cope with our emotions. Thank
Mm.
God we had food to cope with our emotions, correct?
Yeah.
I mean,
We didn't have a lot else.
it wasn't, we could have been doing other things that were
Yes, true.
harmful. So the question comes back to so our doctor is now saying, okay, you need to lose weight. You can say, well, what I tell my clients to say, because they're working with me, is that I'm focusing on behaviors
Mm.
and I'm focusing on my mental health and I'm focusing on my thoughts and my feelings and emotions. I'm not focusing on the number on the scale because research shows that when you only focus on the number on the scale, the weight, the body, the risk for yo-yo dieting increases the risk of, sorry, yo-yo dieting increases the risk of heart disease. So what a doctor is basically saying is, I want you to now be a yo-yo dieter. You need to lose weight,
Mm.
right? Another important point is, would a doctor say to someone, here's a medication. It only works 5% of the time. It's going to fail about 95% of the time. I still want you to take it for a few years. Would a doctor say that?
No,
So they're saying,
not a good one.
and I don't know I don't know if your listeners would feel comfortable to talk to their doctor in that way. They don't
Yeah.
have to. They can just talk about the behaviors and the focus on their mental health and emotions. But it's very interesting because the doctors really don't, in my experience, the doctors don't have much to say back because their patient is talking about research and science and saying the reality is that 95% of people gain weight back. So why am I going to try to lose weight? So what I can do instead is, increase my movement, and I can eat nourishing meals throughout the day and not skip meals, and I can drink more water. And, these are all health behaviors. I actually have a sheet like this that I give everybody. It's beautiful. I can send it to you.
Yes, please. I will. Yeah.
And it just really is. My mission would be in the world that every doctor could hand this out.
Yeah.
Do not focus on weight. Focus on mental, emotional, and physical health and your behaviors, because weight is an outcome. It's not something that we all have control over.
Yes. Yes. Okay. And just while we're on the subject, I can assume what you're going to say, but just giving you the chance. When we're at a situation where a doctor is even, we're not talking about yo-yo dieting, we're talking about we're at a point where I'm recommending surgery for weight loss. I'm recommending a more extreme and perhaps sold as more of a permanent quick fix. Like, where do we stand with those types of things? What do you say to that?
So I'm not for. I think that it's all band-aids. It's not getting to the root cause.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of harm that can be done with surgeries and weight loss drugs as well. And you're diagnosing a body size, and you're not empowering, you're shaming.
Yeah.
But the medical system isn't trained in the psychology of this all, so they don't understand that feeling of shame. And
Yeah, it's not what they're
I really want
basing
to talk
their.
about too that shame causes increased cortisol in the body as well.
Yeah. Yep.
And what they're showing, I don't know if you know anything about the blue zone area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I had an Stacy and Markus Naugel on the show. They actually they're so into it they just moved to one.
What, California?
No, Ecuador.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they moved their whole family there. Like I'll send you
That's unbelievable.
their
Okay.
names. They're like so fascinating. Yeah.
Your viewers could definitely research there's 5 different blue zones, and they showed that the way that they live is like they live in purpose. They meditate, they pray, they have these daily habits that kind of they just feel good a lot of the time.
Community is part of it, right? Like
Community, yep. And they just have this less cortisol. And the less cortisol, what does that do? That increases our longevity, and they live the longest.
Yeah.
And America, well, our country, we have a lot to learn from the blue zone, but that's just not where we are right now.
Yeah. Well, and when you say to someone, you need to lose weight or you might not see your family, go to college or have a wedding or have grandkids, like that is very stress inducing.
Yes. And, there's studies that show like so many people that are told that you should, or else this, and again, coming from that like feeling of failure, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, and people feel depression and anxiety, and that's not going to keep you healthy. So again, like this shift from focusing on weight loss you can want weight loss. Like a lot of people want to lose weight. That's
Yeah.
just kind of a normal wiring in our brain. We can have the desire for weight loss. How about that?
Hmm.
But to constantly focus on it, that is not health. So there's a
Yeah.
difference between desire and kind of a constant focus.
Mm.
And when you have that desire, but okay, I'm going to shift. I know I have the desire, but I'm just going to shift my focus to these four behaviors. Or some people need just to work on one, simple, right?
Mm.
Or some people can work on seven. I mean, every person is individual. But when you work with a dietitian who is focusing on behaviors and health and not diets, what starts to happen is there's no judgment. You're seen, you're heard. I understand everything. You never fail.
Yeah.
Little by little, we just work on your health and to
Yeah.
prove
Yeah. I jotted down earlier when you said that weight is an outcome.
it. Mhm.
And you're speaking to that now. And I can just tell you from my own experience that everything I have done over the last year and a half to sort of like unpack and unlearn dieting and go back to 5 years old at gymnastics, comparing my body to everyone else's and the whole 9 yards, all of the therapy, all of the courses I've taken in this, all the interviews I've done, there is still this hope that at some finish line with this will be weight loss. And I can tell you, even if I was like, hey, Lauren, I want you to be my coach, in the back of my
Yeah.
mind, my goal would still be with work after working with
Mhm.
Lauren, I'm gonna lose weight.
Yeah. And
And
yeah,
it's brutal
and
because
it is so this is like a little coaching here. So are you upset that you have that thought? Or are you like what's the thought about that?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, I
because
feel
we have to kind of embrace that thought and be kind
yeah,
to that thought and kind of like just allow it in and not judge it. Because when you can do that and say, like, it's very normal for me to always want to lose weight. Like, you might always have a desire, but you know the truth, you know the research, you know the science, you know that body size is not is an outcome. It's not something that we have this control over.
mhm,
And there will be some bad body image days and some neutral body image days and some good. I mean, it's not
yeah.
linear. But yeah, tell me a little bit about what like when you got so kind of
Yeah.
like what I
I think it's just like I'm I started this, a while back and was so angry at what I was learning. Like I was so angry learning all about diet culture and how this has impacted me my whole life, and so angry that the level to which I have learned to hate my body. And a lot of that has come through the pandemic, through having children. Like when I say come through that, I just mean I can look back and recognize that I was never happy with my body,
Mhm,
but this hatred for it is new.
mhm,
And it's because I felt so out of control. I felt so uncomfortable. I mean, honestly, I'm 40 to 50 pounds heavier than I've ever been in my whole life.
mhm,
And it's like, it's everything. It's having a closet full of clothes that don't fit, that every month I go through and I get rid of more because I am like, it feels cathartic for me to like get rid of things that I'll just never wear again and I don't want to even look at. And I keep buying new clothes, but it hits me every time I do that, and then 6 months later, the things that I bought to fit me don't fit again.
mhm.
And it's like this, it's the feeling of now having a lot of knowledge and seeing progress, but still feeling like there's something wrong with me, that I know all of this, but I still wanna lose weight.
So that feeling in itself and that thought in itself isn't going to help you with feeling empowered and feeling inspired to make regular habits for your health. Do you agree?
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
I do also think that when I'm not being hard on myself, I can identify the healthy habits that I have changed, right? Like, so for example, I spent many months noticing and um, working to reframe thoughts that I would have anytime I was going to eat, anytime I was hungry, anytime I was going to eat. Like, it was so exhausting. And now I can
It's a
eat.
different type of like you go from the dieting and then you go to the intuitive eating and then you're still kind of in your
Oh my
head.
god.
Yeah,
Oh
it's a
my
lot.
god.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And then I also can see where I've changed my outlook on movement, like, I'm very happy when I, have 20 minutes of movement that is not busting my butt, sweating my
Yep.
ass off.
Yep.
Like,
Just
I used to think that that didn't count, quote unquote,
right.
and like, I'm very happy with that change. I'm happy with, you know, the fact that I just have a lot less anxiety around food, around eating, around
Mhm.
exercise, but the body image part
Yeah.
is still a real struggle.
There's some great dietitians that and others that do body image healing work. I don't
Yeah.
specialize focus on only the body image work. I do everything, but I mean, I definitely we could do a link to some of that too. But what do you think is a behavior that you want to focus more on to take care of yourself and to view it as a self-care approach and an internal, like, I'm doing this for me, I would do this for my child, I want to do this for me, what, or a loved one, like, I want you to think of yourself, I want you to have
I have
compassion for yourself,
yeah. I I
because
have
there's
thought
a
about
lot
this
of
a lot.
what that.
I said I've thought about this a lot recently, and I actually released an episode today where I have the Oprah Life You Want planner, and
Yeah, I saw the ad for that a lot.
it starts with like this wheel of life, and you kind of like gauge where you're at with these like 12 areas, and the areas that I feel that I'm lacking in for myself in taking care of myself are connection and gratitude.
Mhm,
And I know that there has been a big part of me that has resisted socializing and connecting with people
mhm.
because I didn't want to be in front of people.
Yeah, that's very normal. Yeah.
And the gratitude, it's like, and I mentioned this to you in my email, it's like I really struggle with the difference between feeling like I'm accepting versus settling.
Mhm, mhm,
And so the gratitude has been tough. Like, I don't want to be grateful for this body, like, because I don't want it. I don't like it. And like, that's so generalized. And I don't actually mean all of that. But like, when I'm really just in a down funk about it, like, that's what it is. It's like, why should I be grateful for this body? Like, I don't want to.
mhm.
It's
You
awful.
should
It's
read
really awful.
the book, well, The Body Keeps Score is a good book, and then
Yeah.
what's the other one by Lindsay, Kite,
Oh, you
More Than a
more
Body,
than a body. Yeah, that's on my list
and
too.
there's a couple of podcasts. I mean, you can listen and read and do and still feel that hatred, but
Yeah.
at least you're a little bit more self-aware and mindful, of
I'm
this
progressing, it's just slow.
compassion piece of it, because that
Yeah,
that criticism, like, is not going to get you anywhere, and then the self-compassion is going to get you more progress and more
I know.
inner.
I know these things, like, my
Yeah,
my
I know.
logical brain.
And like, if
What
you're judging yourself and criticizing yourself and you're identifying yourself as not in a good place and negativity, um
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
more curiosity and reframing, and really even journaling out some of your thoughts and feelings, and being okay with whatever you're feeling right now, and feeling that hate and feeling angry. You said the word angry before a lot too. Like, I am
yeah,
angry that, like, I was part of this culture and that like I mean we're just swimming in it right now. Like
Yeah.
the minute we get off this Zoom, the podcast,
Yeah.
um we can hear messages and see things that are upsetting and angry and triggering, and
Yeah.
it's almost like we have to have this armor on that like
Yes.
we're just doing the best that we can to take care of ourselves, and we don't want to get stuck in that cycle of dieting harm.
Yeah.
But the desire and the feeling can be there can be waves of that.
Yeah. I am at a point where I've done enough of the exercises to know, including
You did
writing
all
a
this.
letter. Oh yeah, did the whole book. Like and she just showed the intuitive eating workbook. And I've done multiple where I've written the letter to myself that I will never diet. I've gone back to every dieting journal that I've ever kept where I've logged every weight for every week. I used to do a program that a lot of people do with points, and I had every book that I ever had for that. And I have gone back and I have seen in black and white just how how like they don't work. I see
Yeah,
that. And
yeah.
I've done the whole thing, but I think, and maybe this ties into another question I had for you, that I can see where dieting doesn't work, and I have committed to not doing it anymore
Mhm,
because I know the implications on my mental health. I know, and I know that physically it just doesn't work.
mhm.
But another thing that I struggle with, and to me it ties, maybe it's not it doesn't tie for everyone, but for me it does, that understanding like the the moral neutrality of food,
Mhm,
but also knowing there is a nutritional component to
mhm.
food, like, that's really hard for me to balance. Like, when I see a food that I want that's perhaps, you
Give me
know,
an example.
um, like if I have a choice of, like, say we're gonna order in, and I'm looking at a menu, and there is a soup and a salad, or there's, a chicken parm sandwich.
Mhm.
Like, I can't say at this point I've done enough work to know that I don't really want the chicken parm sandwich, but, like, so maybe that's not a good example, but, like, the desire for a quote unquote, like, bad food that
Yeah.
all my life has been determined a bad food, and
Yes.
going, "I want it, but I want to lose weight, so maybe I should have the salad." Like, it's
So
a
the so that
mind
thought of I want to lose weight is going to get in the way as well. Like
Yes.
I want like what if you feel like I want to feel good and what's my intention behind this? So like those are two things you could stay
Oh,
ask
I
yourself.
like that.
I want to feel physically, mentally, emotionally good. And what is my intention behind this choice?
Yeah.
And you have to remember that you have been a dieter since you're I don't know how old with all this stuff. And correct? Like
Oh,
what
yeah. I
so
mean, I
so
high
it
school.
takes it takes time to for food to just be food and to just be neutral.
Yeah.
After, 20 years of doing restricting and feeling this emotional charge around certain foods and not a neutral,
Mhm.
right? So like when you're intuitive, you feel more, okay, there's a chicken parm sandwich and here's a salad and a soup.
Mhm.
They both well, I'm kind of in the mood for the chicken parm today. I'm in the mood for the soup and the salad another day. It's like the intention behind it, and also like what are you craving, what sounds good, does soup kind of sound good, are you cold, are you more like what are you looking for, more of the salad crunchy crispy, there's different
Mhm. Yeah.
adjectives to describe food too.
Mhm.
Find Food Freedom, Sam, she did a great post on this with a salad the other day. I don't know if you follow Find Food Freedom.
Yeah, I do.
She's
She's
really great.
yeah.
I definitely learned a lot from her in the last 4 or 5 years as well. And she does incredible posts on a lot of intention behind your choices.
Is she,
Sam.
yeah, Sam, there she's pregnant right now, right? Is
No,
that
she's
her?
had her baby, I think.
Oh, but she was this
Yes,
past year, she was
yes,
pregnant. Yes,
yes.
okay. Yes, I've seen her.
So
Yes.
I think all your followers should, I mean, all your listeners right now should find Sammy, find food freedom. She's one of the
Oh, what the
top,
actual fork? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know.
yeah,
Yeah, her.
she's
Yeah.
wonderful. So you might,
All right.
your
Yeah.
thoughts and your feelings around the food are still, seeped in the diet culture, but you can reframe to more of what's my intention, what am I in the mood for, what do I feel like. You might feel like the less nutrient dense sometimes and the more nutrient dense other times.
Yeah. I
But
think
it's also
yeah.
still
Go ahead.
like this, like almost like a rebel. Do you feel like that sometimes too? Like, well, I don't know if you have that thought. A lot of people do, like, oh well, I shouldn't, so I want it. It's like that psychology of, and
You
then
know
there's,
what's funny? It's like I used to have that rebel thing of like as soon as I say I shouldn't, I want it. And now I've actually been experiencing kind of the opposite of like of feeling like and it's died down, but certainly when I first started giving myself permission to just eat all of the off limit things, it was like, oh, this isn't off limits, so I should eat it, even if I didn't necessarily want it. Like it was this
right,
learning curve of
right.
like,
You had to
now
learn that.
everything's available to me. And I'm like, well, then I'm gonna
One of my
all messed up.
group coaching client on Monday night, we finished up our program, and she said that she would, she wasn't, a lot of people don't eat enough during the day, right? Like they just
Yeah.
don't eat nourishing breakfast, nourishing lunch, a snack, a dinner. Like everybody should
Yeah.
be eating throughout the day. I don't know if you, maybe sometimes that happens to you also, and then
100%.
okay,
That's through
so
the intuitive eating. I book the main two things that I learned the first time I went through it was that I'm not eating enough
yeah.
and that I'm a very like I almost see eating as a waste of time.
Well,
So
yeah.
I multitask. I'm a distracted eater.
It's also
I'm
like
like,
another decision making skill that we have to make in our day. There's like one more thing that we have to think about, and then we have
yeah,
a lot of decision fatigue and distractions. And
yeah,
self care is eating throughout the day. By the way, for everyone listening, like not, you don't have to go get a manicure and a haircut and your,
I know.
massage. You can just eat throughout the day.
Yeah,
I was going to make another point with,
I know. I'm sorry I cut you off.
no, it's okay. What's it? No, I forgot my train of thought. Okay, what were you saying?
I'm normally much better about that, but this topic gets me like
Eating.
amped.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say. So my client told me that she would go food shopping, and she probably didn't eat enough during the day, right? And she would go
Hmm.
down the chip aisle, and in the car on the way home, she was eating the entire bag of chips.
Yeah,
Now, she's also been doing this work for a while, and then she had my course, but she feels that the chips are just not such a big deal. She knows she can have them.
yeah,
So when she walks down that aisle, she's not feeling this. First of all, she's not hangry, and she doesn't have these increased cravings because she had something satisfying for breakfast or lunch, whatever it is. Now she learns how to have more variety and have more satisfaction. Like that could be too for you. Like maybe you're not having satisfaction in certain meal. I mean, we're not going to always be satisfied with our meals,
yeah.
but and then that's why you're choosing less nutrient dense things sometimes because you didn't eat enough, and then you're like, oh, I just want that. And
That's
there's
like
a lot.
that totally happens. And the other thing that happens that tied into just like seeing food as a waste of time in the sense it's like I I don't want to take the time generally to prepare something that I will enjoy. So I let myself get hungry to the point where I just eat what's around. And I've really worked at this. I've gotten a lot better at it. And I actually went as far as like taking a couple of opportunities to force myself to prepare a meal for myself and timing it and being like, oh my God, that literally took 3.5 minutes.
Right.
Like, it's not that serious, because especially like my life now is it's very the time is very like blocked and compartmentalized where it's like I only have a couple of hours a day, maybe, where I am not with my kids.
Mhm.
And so, like, the idea of, quote unquote, wasting that time to make a meal is like, I don't want to do it. And that's where I had to time myself and be like, you're taking 3 minutes
Yeah, I
out of
like
your
that you
two
did that.
hours,
I like that you did
because
that. Mhm.
it's, I have to see it like that sometimes. And I have to, oh, I have to, but I want to make sure we get to this because I think that for me, you can hear and my listeners know, and I know but eating and all of this, like, part of why I am so interested in the connection to mental health is not only, which I know you could tell me about, like, different foods that, like, literally mind body food connection, but this is every day.
Mhm.
Like, every day we have to eat. Every day I have to
Yeah,
think about this in
yeah,
some way, shape, or form. And even if the thought is about reframing, it's like,
I
it's,
know, it's annoying.
yes.
It's a relationship that we have with food that is for the rest of our lives, and we
Yeah.
need to work on it, and it could take time for someone who had a dieting mindset for a long time. I mean, can you tell me how many years?
Oh my God. I mean, the first time I remember going on an active diet was high school. I was I did the program with the points starting in high school.
Okay.
Um, but I mean,
On and off for years, and just the any family influence too, like about things.
oh, totally. I
Because
mean, I
that's a
have,
big
yeah,
part. Yeah. So imagine you're wearing this white sweater, and the white sweater has, like, let's say someone is 35 years old and it has 35, well, maybe it has 32 lines. Because I always say, like you start getting that diet culture around 3 years old, even with the visuals of in the movie, right? Like all of the princesses, their sizes,
yes.
you start
And I
feeling,
did gymnastics from like
yeah.
that age. So that was
So
always,
let's say we have 33 black Sharpie lines on a white sweater. And little by little, you're erasing these lines.
yeah.
And there might only be a couple lines erased right now, So it's,
Yeah, they were big, they were hard to erase, let me tell you. But yeah, there's only a few. You're right. I know.
you
I
just
know.
keep learning and getting curious and experimenting and not judging and not shaming,
Yeah.
because that's the big, and getting mindful and self-aware. Like, if you didn't eat enough earlier and now you feel like I ate past fullness and I don't feel comfortable, does that happen sometimes?
Sometimes. No,
Sometimes.
it's rare now. Like
Now you stop and you
I
say,
will leave
okay.
food on the plate. Like
Okay.
I've gotten a lot better about that, but yes, I
So
understand what you're saying.
yeah, I mean, if that's happening, that's, you're not feeling comfortable, then you need to say, oh, I learned that I didn't eat enough at breakfast and I didn't have enough at lunch, and whatever it is, you just keep learning, because that's how you're going to get to more of a healthy variety and a healthy feeling. Like, oh, I know that that food makes me feel really nice and satisfied for a few hours. Another important thing is hunger is every 2 to 4 hours. So
Mhm.
we don't want to feel not hungry. Like, hunger is a good sign of health. And it's
Right.
also a good sign that we ate a pretty, like, a good amount for our body, not that someone's telling us this is the amount that you should be having on your plate. We ate it, and if you're full for 5 or 6 hours, you might want to think back, huh? I didn't feel comfortable. That probably was a lot for my body. And next time I'm gonna think about that meal, and
Yeah.
to just feel better, right?
Yeah. I think it is I've definitely experienced a lot over the last year is the trial and error kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there are moments where I feel really empowered by that moment of trial and error, and there are moments where I'm like, gosh darn it. Like,
Yes.
oh. Anyway, I there were lots of things that we didn't get to today, but I think what's really just fresh on my mind, and I think would be a good place to kind of leave us off is, someone listening to this, they're hearing my story, they're hearing everything you're saying, and they're wanting help. Can you talk a little bit about what it tangibly looks like to work with you, and what the work, quote unquote, like how people always say
Yeah,
do the work, like
sure.
what the work looks like?
So first you have to be in a readiness stage to work with me, right?
Mm,
There have been people that reached out to me a year ago and then they started and they weren't ready then and they're like, okay, I'll think about it. And then it's like they just wanted to try another diet or another way, or they wanted to try it on their own. And then they come back a year later and they're like, now I'm ready. So there have been people that say, I would not have been ready, Lauren, to go through this and to learn this a year ago.
mhm,
So you have to feel ready to give it, have time and energy and commitment to unlearning and learning a lot at the same time, and to
mhm,
focus on your health, your self care, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, all the principles of intuitive eating, learning what does a balanced plate look like? What does a balanced snack look like? Like, we're not taught this. I give visuals, I give easy, simple planners, I
mhm.
give different recipe ideas that are like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Because people don't want to spend the time. We're so distracted. We have
You
so
know,
much going on.
yeah.
So I want to come in and I want to kind of simplify all this and make it easy
Mhm,
so that you feel this like calm with around food, and you feel like, okay, now I know what my body needs. I feel more energy. I'm in a better mood. I feel better focused, So I do have a 4-week group program, and then I
mhm.
do work one on one with clients as well. And it's really based on where you're starting at. I individualize all my sessions, not the group. The group is a
Right.
format and a framework. But again, you're not judged or shamed or blamed. Like you're just seen and heard for who you are. And I don't think that a lot of people are getting that in our society. Would you agree? Like just
Yeah.
kind of that compassionate, like mental health approach to nutrition and emotions.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of nutritionists and some dietitians that don't focus too much on the mental aspect. And what can start happening is they're given this advice of, work out 6 days a week, limit your carbs, don't eat after 7. And then what happens is their mental health is so affected, right? They're hangry and they have thoughts of, I mean, you could probably tell me that this was maybe you as well.
Mhm,
Um, but that advice is unrealistic, unsustainable,
mhm.
and it's not based on the physiological need of your body.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if this is where our culture is where people are going to learn how to eat, there's a problem with that, because now all these people are going to be feeling depressed and anxious because they weren't able to follow what the nutritionist told them. But that advice wasn't based on your physiological and biological and emotional needs.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that I'm hearing about it is really that the personalization of it, because as well intentioned as all of the, not well intentioned, I don't mean to diminish it, but like as informative as books, podcasts,
Mhm.
social media accounts who are talking about these sort of things are, just one thing I'm even thinking of is like, it's one thing for me to get coached on how to prioritize my time better, to make this da, 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 and look at why I don't want to make a meal for myself and this, that, and the other. There's also then the whole, you know, personal aspect to me taken a step further of a lot of the recipes that I come across involve food, like a lot of the foods I find that are easy and quick, um, actually don't agree with me.
Mhm.
So it's very frustrating, and I can see where that next level of, unique individual, coaching with a dietitian or a
Mhm,
nutritionist or
mhm,
someone who's like looking at the bigger picture would be helpful because, you know,
mhm.
I don't want to eat the things that people are like, hey, it's easy to make these like eggs real quick. It's like, you know what?
Yeah,
Eggs make me feel like garbage.
yeah.
So I
So
don't, you
you
know what
know
I
what
mean? Like it's
you
very hard.
yeah, and everybody, I mean, it's so sad because people might have been given a plan with eggs in the morning and this and that, and they're eating it because they think they should. They're not eating
Right.
something that's making them feel good, and that's just breaks my heart. I also
Yeah.
want to talk about like self-doubt and people pleasing and
Hmm.
self-trust and this feeling of not being good enough. Like all of that mental aspect affects your relationship with food and body.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we dive into that. And I don't, doctors don't dive into that. And
Yeah.
and the health coaches, I don't, I mean, maybe some of them do, but the reality is if you're not getting the whole picture of mental, physical, and emotional, you are likely to be stuck more in a cycle of poor health,
Yeah.
not getting
Yeah.
to the root cause of
The
everything.
root. I noted that
Like
too. You
I
said the root
stitch.
cause.
I
Yeah.
say like I stitch you up. I don't band-aid. I stitch.
Yeah. 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 It's funny. It's reminding me of I think it was Dr. Morgan again. Like we are talking a little bit about the people pleasing and we both it was funny and I'm sure you hear this a lot. We both have like an association with like bread baskets at restaurants and like people pleasing and it being either like acceptable within your family to actually eat the bread with butter or if you were like grew up in a family that said please don't bring us the bread and and like it's just like these little everyday sort of things that from such a young age like we both I'll just can you speak I'll speak for myself like I have like memory of wondering that's what's crazy about all this, right? Is like sometimes it was never even said outright. It was just in my head. I was
Like,
going,
are they
is
thinking
is
this?
someone like thinking that I'm eating too
Judge
much bread?
judgment.
Yeah, yeah, like
Yeah.
it's wild. It's wild.
And like nobody would judge how much we breathe or how much we go to the
Right?
bathroom or how many like or how cold we are, like the base, like cold or
Yeah,
hot. I do talk about
yeah.
that a lot with just to kind of bring it down to physiological, right? Our
Mhm.
needs, shelter, warmth, water, all
Yeah.
the basic needs. Like we don't look at food the same way because there is this $78 billion culture messaging that is ingrained in us. And now even, the eating disorder rate is increasing. And I believe a lot of it has to do with TikTok and social media
I know.
information. And I do go around and try to help navigate nutrition misinformation for schools and for teachers and for businesses
Yeah.
and conferences. I just want so many more people to be impacted with the true science and the true research of it all. Just that
Mhm.
you can eat late at night, like that's okay. You can eat bread multiple times a day, like, and you can be healthy.
And
um
the waitress doesn't care how many pieces of bread you eat from the bread basket. I
exactly.
used to
That's
worry about that, and it
that's
wasn't until I
judgment.
was a server that I was like, I could care less
I know.
how
And
much
if
that person is
if
eating.
that person cares, that's them. Who cares?
Right, why do I care? I know,
Yeah,
I know,
even if they
I
were
know,
saying something to
I
themselves.
know. All right, Lauren, there's like 40 other things that we could talk about, but I'm gonna respect your time. Let's perhaps do a second one of these, please. I
Sure.
would love to get into just the way you speak about eating disorders. We didn't get to that, and I really think it's important. And we really didn't actually even get into all the mental health stuff too much.
I do definitely want to just say that eating disorder is a brain disorder. It's not a body disorder. So
Okay.
94% of people are living with eating disorders that are in all size bodies. Just 6% of eating disorders is underweight. So that's an important point for everyone to learn.
Wow. That's a huge
It's
misconception, I
it's how
think.
much brain space is taken up by food and body every day, along with some other, diagnosis
Yes.
criteria. But that's a big one.
I know it's so important to talk about. Okay. All right. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for your time
You're
today.
welcome. Thank you for
I
having
will,
me.
of course, yes, I'm gonna link, a couple of the different articles and things that we talked about. And just thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I loved it. But I want to share my two biggest takeaways from this conversation. And number one is the clarification on how to handle the whole food situation and decision making with my kids. You heard me talk about my daughter and her ice cream habits. But I've really taken Lauren's advice and felt just so much more confident in how I'm able to navigate those situations. For example, I'm recording this the week of Valentine's Day, so there was lots of cookies and candy and chocolate in our house. And, at some point, like it was too much, right? At some point, it's getting close to bedtime. We don't want all that sugar, all the things, and blah, blah, blah. I'm not a dietitian, so I'm not going to get into it, but you know what I'm saying. And it felt really great to have the tool of you can have more tomorrow. And I know that sounds simple, but as I shared, I was afraid that even that was kind of setting my kids up for this disordered relationship with food. And it's just so tricky. And I don't know if you saw my Instagram stories recently, but actually on Valentine's Day, I recorded a little video of just how much candy and cookies, the kids kind of left behind. And I am, yes, of course, taking some credit for that in the sense that, they ate what they wanted and then they were done with it. And that's amazing. And if they ate all of it, that would be amazing too. But I noticed it. I noticed that they left some behind. And I think it's because part of it is because when it was put out, when it was presented, I didn't say anything about it. I didn't say, don't eat too much. I didn't say, I don't want you to have all this or anything. It just was like, here, it's food. And it's around. And when they were done, they were done. And I said at the start of this, like, ooh, I want to take credit. But really, the credit goes mostly to people like Lauren who have come on this show and done such an incredible job sharing with me what they know and how to do this with our kids, because it is so tricky. And, on one hand, I'm a pretty realistic person and I'm pretty self-aware. And I know that all of the work I'm doing will greatly benefit my kids. I'm confident that they are not going to have some breadbasket story like the rest of us, but they're going to probably have something, right? I don't know what it is yet, but I really think they'll be better off than what I've been doing now for the last 2-3 years, is really figuring this out. Anyway, okay. And the second big takeaway was that really important question that Lauren shared to ask ourselves when it's time to eat. And that is, I want to feel good. And what is my intention with this choice? Oh, I love that. I love that because it leaves the possibilities so wide open. It's like, I want to feel good. I'm going to say it again. And what is my intention with this choice? Because if the intention with the choice is, I really just want to enjoy this food, whatever it is, like that is a choice. It's very intentional. And she says that a lot. It's choice. It's choice. It really is. And if the choice is something else, I can't even think of another choice you might want to have, but that's where the feeling good part comes in, right? Because let me think of things. Okay, so just earlier today, I was hungry. I felt hunger, and I have made an agreement with myself now that when I am hungry, I will eat. I know that might sound silly to some people, but I have this habit, especially on days where I either don't have my kids around and I want to get everything done under the sun, or sometimes when the kids are around and we're just busy, if there is not something quick for me to grab and eat, I will just put it off until I get myself to the point where I feel like crap, like physically feel horrible. And so I have, over this past week, made the agreement that when I'm hungry, I will eat, and I will not eating, I know in my mind, also does not mean grabbing a bag of goldfish on the way out to pick up my kid. It means like really looking around, and even if it means taking 5 minutes to put something together, like that is the agreement I've made with myself. And in doing that, like the I want to feel good and what is my intention with this choice has really come into play, because that is what I would do. I would just like grab something. And now when I like look at a bag of goldfish and I say to myself, I want to feel good and what is my intention with this choice? It's like, is this going to make me feel good? No, it's not. What is my intention with this choice? My intention with this choice is, it's not a good one. It's not prioritizing myself. It's not making my hunger something that I need to pay attention to. And so we flip it. I want to feel good. So if goldfish isn't going to make me feel good, what is? And I'm really just working through that. And the intention then is, feeding myself and making that a priority. And it sounds so basic and ridiculous, but it's what it is. So anyway, Lauren, so much to think about. Thank you so much for your time, fellow Jersey girl. Love it. We've got some great resources of Lauren's linked in the show notes. Please go check them out and follow her over on Instagram, Don't Diet Dietitian. Absolutely love that name. And that's all I've got today, and I will catch you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Niagara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.